Die Forschungsplattform EURECA ist der größte Satellit, den die Europäer je gebaut haben. Ein Labor für Versuche in der Schwerelosigkeit. Ein Novum, die Plattform funktioniert vollautomatisch, ohne Astronauten. Die 65 Experimente werden vom Boden aus gesteuert, von der Deutschen Forschungsanstalt für Luft- und Raumfahrt in Köln. Nur wenige Minuten am Tag besteht Funkkontakt, dann werden Datenpakete abgerufen und die Versuchsbedingungen korrigiert. Zeitsprung. Vor der Inbetriebnahme von EURECA machten die Europäer ihre Experimente im Raumlabor an Bord des Space Shuttle. Doch mit den Bedingungen dort waren die Forscher nie 100% glücklich. Denn jede Bewegung der Astronauten stört die Schwerelosigkeit und die Zeit war immer knapp, denn Shuttleflüge dauern selten länger als 8 bis 10 Tage. Mit EURECA haben die Europäer ein Stück Autonomie gewonnen. Der Space Shuttle dient nur noch als Taxi in die Umlaufbahn. In den Monaten zwischen Start und Landung können die Forscher ungestört und vor allem langfristig experimentieren. Wie wirkt die Schwerelosigkeit auf biologische und physikalische Prozesse? Können Zellen sich regelgerecht teilen, wenn keine Schwerkraft die Richtung vorgibt? Und wissen Keimlinge, wo oben und unten ist, ohne Gravitation? Ein weiterer Schwerpunkt: die Züchtung von Kristallen, die in der Schwerelosigkeit schneller wachsen und größer und regelmäßiger werden als auf der Erde. Vor allem die Materialforscher interessieren sich für dieses Thema. Sie hoffen, mit Hilfe der sauberen, ebenmäßigen Kristalle aus dem EURECA-Labor Baupläne für das Moleküldesign auf der Erde zu gewinnen. Bisher läuft an Bord alles planmäßig. Einige Experimente sind abgeschlossen und werden nun nacheinander eingemottet.
Also das, was wir bis jetzt gesehen haben, war wirklich sind sehr vernünftige Ergebnisse. Der Erfolg ist recht groß, soweit wir das beurteilen können. Natürlich, die wissenschaftliche Beurteilung der Experimente kann nur dann erfolgen, wenn EURECA zurück sein wird.
Und genau das ist der Pferdefuß beim EURECA-Programm. Die Plattform funktioniert zwar vollautomatisch und sie ist sogar wiederverwendbar, aber für den Start und das Wiedereinfangen ist jedes Mal eine bemannte Space-Shuttle-Mission nötig. Für die Forscher, die nicht nur die Daten, sondern auch ihre Proben zurückhaben wollen, heißt es nun, warten auf den nächsten Flug von Endeavour.
Samples for the research and satellite retrieval mission. A minor helium leak in the engine compartment was discovered yesterday, but engineers say it poses no threat. Astronauts plan a spacewalk and a test of the new Spacelab laboratory during that 8-day mission.
CNN International plans to bring you the shuttle launch live at approximately 13:30 GMT Sunday.
Grünes Licht für den für heute Nachmittag geplanten Start der Raumfähre Endeavour gegeben. Sie soll den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA wieder auf die Erde zurückholen. 2 Astronauten werden ihn am 4. Flugtag mit dem Greifarm der Fähre einfangen und in der Ladebucht verstauen. Auf dem Flug wird zum ersten Mal eine neue Anlage für kommerzielle Forschungszwecke im All zum Einsatz kommen. Außerdem sollen 2 Astronauten einen 4-stündigen Weltraumspaziergang machen. EURECA war im August vergangenen Jahres von dem Shuttle Atlantis im Weltraum ausgesetzt worden. Nach etwa einer Woche wird die Fähre wieder in Cape Canaveral landen.
Good weather is predicted for launch time. Endeavour's crew will retrieve a European satellite that has been in orbit for nearly a year, carrying several experiments. And CNN International plans to bring you the shuttle launch live at approximately 13:30 GMT on Sunday.
Space Shuttle Mission der NASA. Um 15:38 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit soll der Raumgleiter Endeavour von Cape Canaveral abheben, wenn diesmal alles glatt geht. Der ursprüngliche Starttermin vor 6 Wochen musste wegen Problemen mit der Technik abgebrochen werden. Das Schiff und seine 6-köpfige Besatzung sollen eine Woche im All bleiben.
Endeavour is still on track for its scheduled liftoff at 9:38 Eastern Time. Timing is important. The shuttle crew plans to link up with a European satellite and bring it back to Earth. During its week-long mission, Endeavour will also make preparations for this winter's repair of the Hubble Space Telescope. CNN International plans live coverage of the shuttle launch in about an hour and a half.
Arlene will continue to dump 5 to 10 inches of rain there, scattered showers in California, and more rain in the upper Great Lakes.
The hatch has been closed, and Endeavour is scheduled to lift off at 9:38 Eastern Time. Timing is important. Right now, cloudy conditions at the launch site have put the liftoff on hold. But NASA officials say they hope the clouds clear by launch time. The shuttle crew plans to link up with a European satellite and bring it back to Earth. During its week-long mission, Endeavour will also make preparations for this winter's repair of the Hubble Space Telescope.
Die Endeavour sollte seit gut einer halben Stunde auf ihrem Flug ins All sein, aber es gab Komplikationen offenbar.
There is still about half an hour left in the launch window, after which liftoff would have to be rescheduled for tomorrow. The Endeavour's mission is to meet up with a science satellite in mid-orbit and bring it home in the cargo bay. During their 8 days in space, the 6-member crew also plans to initiate the world's first commercial space laboratory and lay the groundwork for the repair of the Hubble Space Telescope.
Canaveral haben sie noch nichts verpasst. Der Countdown der Raumfähre Endeavour ist eingefroren worden. Sie ist also noch nicht gestartet.
Nach wetterbedingter Verzögerung musste vor wenigen Minuten der Start der Endeavour von Cape Canaveral aus ins All abgeblasen werden.
Kennedy Space Center. We have in fact scrubbed our launch today.
Clouds over the Kennedy Space Center in Florida have delayed the launch of the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour for at least 24 hours. Because of a planned rendezvous in space, the timing of the launch was critical. But the acceptable launch window passed before the cloud cover cleared, forcing NASA officials to push the mission back at least one day. One of the Endeavour's goals is to meet up with a science satellite in mid-orbit and bring it home in the cargo bay.
Die Fähre Endeavour ist am Nachmittag verschoben worden. Grund ist eine dichte Wolkendecke über dem Raumfahrtzentrum Cape Canaveral. Wegen technischer Probleme musste der Start der Endeavour zuvor schon einmal verschoben werden. Eine Aufgabe der 6 Astronauten ist die Bergung des europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA, der vor rund 10 Monaten im All ausgesetzt wurde.
Astronauten an Bord ins Weltall fliegen und dort die europäische Laborplattform EURECA einholen. EURECA liefert die Ergebnisse von wissenschaftlichen Experimenten. Der Start des Shuttles war ursprünglich für 15:38 Uhr geplant gewesen. Ein neuer Start ist heute nicht mehr möglich.
Der Start der Raumfähre Endeavour hat sich wegen schlechten Wetters verzögert. Dicke Wolken hängen über der Abschussrampe in Cape Canaveral im Sonnenstaat Florida. Eigentlich sollte der Shuttle um 15:37 Uhr unserer Zeit abheben. Ein neuer Start soll nun morgen Nachmittag versucht werden.
Der Start der Raumfähre Endeavour ist auf morgen verschoben worden. Grund: über dem Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral lag eine dichte Wolkendecke, die ein Abheben unmöglich machte. Ziel des Fluges der Raumfähre ist es, den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA einzufangen und zur Erde zurückzubringen.
Clouds over the Kennedy Space Center in Florida have delayed the launch of the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour for at least 24 hours. Because of a planned rendezvous in space, the timing of the launch was critical. But the launch window passed before the cloud cover cleared, forcing NASA officials to push the mission back at least one day. One of the Endeavour's goals is to meet up with a science satellite in mid-orbit and bring it home in the cargo bay.
Musste abgebrochen werden. Der Grund: schlechtes Wetter. Dicke Wolken hingen über der Abschussrampe in Cape Canaveral im Sonnenstaat Florida. Eigentlich sollte der Shuttle um 15:37 Uhr unserer Zeit abheben. Ein neuer Start soll nun morgen Nachmittag versucht werden.
Die Probe für Techniker und Astronauten ist zunächst beendet. Der Start der Raumfähre Endeavour wurde erneut verschoben. Schuld war eine dichte Wolkendecke über dem Raumfahrtzentrum Cape Canaveral. Außerdem war ein Containerfrachtschiff in die Kontrollzone geraten. Dieses hatte es nicht mehr geschafft, das Sperrgebiet rechtzeitig zu verlassen. Wegen technischer Probleme hatte die Endeavour bereits schon einmal an Boden bleiben müssen. Eine Aufgabe der 6 Astronauten ist die Bergung des europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA. Die unbemannte Forschungsplattform war vor 10 Monaten ins All geschickt worden.
In North America, fair dry weather in the west and in the plains, heavier rains down in Texas as well as Louisiana. Some flooding continues there with the rain in the northeastern corner of the country.
An 8-day mission. Poor weather and low clouds forced the postponement of the first launch attempt Sunday, but as you can see, the weather is clear and NASA's 56th shuttle flight is about to get underway with some 3 million kilos of thrust. Endeavour and its crew will be racing after a satellite called EURECA, a European Space Agency satellite. Let's listen in.
15, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on the first Spacehab mission and the retrieval of the EURECA spacecraft.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour is rolling onto the proper heading.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Roll maneuvers complete, placing Endeavour and crew on a due east course. 3 good engines. Throttle settings at 100%. Main engines are throttling back now, helping to ease loads on the vehicle as it powers through the dense lower altitudes and continues to accelerate rapidly. Engine throttles are now at 72%. Endeavour's already traveling over 1,000 miles per hour. And all 3 main engines are throttling back up.
Endeavour, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up. All engines are now running at full throttle and all systems performing well. Altitude 57,000 feet, downrange 7 nautical miles. Over the next 60 seconds, as Endeavour continues to climb at a relatively steep angle, the vehicle's rate of speed will virtually triple. The solid rocket boosters, each providing up to 3.3 million pounds of thrust, will burn out and separate at 2 minutes 4 seconds. Time now, 1 minute 45 seconds. SRB chamber pressure is beginning to diminish at this point. And we have a clean separation. Endeavour's now flying free of the solids under the power of its own main engines. Second stage guidance is now controlling the vehicle. Altitude 173,000 feet, downrange distance 38 nautical miles. Endeavour's now traveling over 2,800 miles per hour.
Endeavour, performance nominal.
Roger, performance nominal.
Endeavour, 2-engine Ben Guerir.
2-engine Ben Guerir. Early performance of the main engines and boosters was good. Endeavour can now cross the Atlantic Ocean with only 2 engines should one fail. Altitude 222,000 feet, downrange distance 57 nautical miles. Endeavour's now traveling over 3,200 miles per hour. The vehicle continues to accelerate very rapidly at this point, shedding weight as propellant burns off. The orbiter's trajectory is also beginning to level out a bit here as Endeavour and crew head out over the Atlantic Ocean. Downrange distance now 75 nautical miles. Time 3 minutes 25 seconds. All systems are performing well. Altitude now 275,000 feet. Downrange 90 miles. Endeavour, just be advised we're not reading MS1 and MS2 on ICOM.
And we copy.
There you see it disappearing into the distance, a full throttle flight into the Florida morning sky by Endeavour, now racing off to find EURECA, a European Space Agency satellite that has been orbiting the Earth for nearly a year. That satellite loaded with scientific instruments and experiments that Endeavour is going to bring home for scientists on Earth to examine. I'm Jonathan Mann at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Now back to Larry King.
Weiter Versuch. Nach dem gestrigen Abbruch ist die Endeavour von Cape Canaveral aus ins All gestartet.
Um 15:07 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit hob die Endeavour vom Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral ab. Der ursprünglich für Sonntag vorgesehene Start musste verschoben werden. Schlechtes Wetter hatte die Mission verhindert. Die 6 Astronauten werden während ihres Weltraumfluges versuchen, den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA zu bergen, der vor 10 Monaten ausgesetzt worden war. Die Astronauten sollen ihn mit dem Greifarm des Shuttles einfangen und in die Ladebucht verstauen. Außerdem sollen zahlreiche Experimente durchgeführt und ein Weltraumspaziergang unternommen werden. Der Start der Endeavour ist die 56. Shuttle-Mission seit 1981.
Ihre Endeavour ist heute nach 2 vergeblichen Anläufen ins All gestartet. Kurz nach 15 Uhr hob die Raumfähre mit 6 Astronauten an Bord von Cape Canaveral in Florida ab. Die 4 Männer und 2 Frauen sollen den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA zur Erde zurückbringen. Außerdem sollen sie während des voraussichtlich 7-tägigen Aufenthalts ein Raumlabor in Betrieb nehmen und Techniken zur Reparatur des Weltraumteleskops Hubble erproben.
Hinein in den Rachen eines grauslichen Dinosauriers. 2 der größten Omnimax-Leinwände der Welt sorgen für entsprechenden Realismus und gehöriges Kribbeln in der Magengrube. Steven Spielberg, der die Zurück in die Zukunft-Trilogie produzierte und am Projekt beratend beteiligt war, ließ sich die Eröffnung nicht entgehen. Er weihte das Spektakel zusammen mit Michael J. Fox ein. Nach 3-maligem Trip kreuz und quer durch die Zeit war Regisseur Robert Zemeckis total begeistert. Das Ding enthält dieselbe Art Entertainment wie meine Filme.
Truly like experiencing the film. It's like the same tone, same characters.
Während des Anstehens treffen wir unsere alten Freunde Doc Brown und Biff Tannen wieder. Doc hat inzwischen eine viel effektivere Zeitmaschine gebastelt, in die bis zu 8 Leute passen. Natürlich hat der fiese Biff nichts Besseres zu tun, als diesen Super DeLorean zu klauen. Und wer meinen Sie wohl, darf sich auf die Jagd durch Raum und Zeit machen, um Biff mit der Zeitmaschine zurückzubringen? Jeder Besucher der Universal Studios in Hollywood. Klar, dass die Kids davon total begeistert sind.
It's great. I mean...
Da soll noch mal jemand sagen, dass nur Fliegen schöner ist.
Nach 2 vergeblichen Anläufen ins All gestartet. Die 4 Männer und 2 Frauen an Bord sollen den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA zur Erde zurückbringen.
Noch kommen die Bilder aus dem Trickcomputer, aber Mitte der Woche ist die Wirklichkeit auch soweit. Dann wird sich die US-Raumfähre Endeavour dem europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA so weit angenähert haben, dass die Greifarme des Shuttles das fliegende Labor in die Ladebucht hieven und als Gepäckstück an Bord zur Erde zurückbringen können. Damit wird erstmals in der Geschichte der Raumfahrt ein wiederverwendbarer Forschungssatellit zur Bodenstation gebracht. Der planmäßige Heimkehrer EURECA stammt aus deutscher Produktion. Im August letzten Jahres ausgesetzt, hat das fliegende Labor fast 10 Billionen Daten zur Erde gefunkt und Schwerelosigkeitsexperimente aus den Bereichen Material- und Biowissenschaften gemacht. Nach der Rückkehr sollte die mit 4,5 Tonnen bislang schwerste Experimentierplattform betankt, mit neuer Versuchsanordnung versehen, wieder ins All geschossen werden. Doch der Jungfernflug von EURECA ist wohl auch der letzte gewesen. Für einen weiteren Start fehlt den Europäern augenblicklich das Geld. Die 6 US-Astronauten an Bord der Endeavour sind aber auch in eigener amerikanischer Sache ins All gestartet. Geplant ist ein Weltraumspaziergang, mit dem die NASA die Reparatur ihres Riesenteleskops Hubble vorbereiten will. Das ist seit 3 Jahren im Orbit, sollte ferne Galaxien und damit den Anfang des Alls aufspüren. Doch eines Produktionsfehlers wegen liefert die fast 3 Milliarden Mark teure Sternwarte nur unscharfe Bilder. Im Herbst werden NASA-Astronauten mit Werkzeugkasten und Ersatzteilen an Bord der Endeavour das sehschwache Fernrohr erneut ansteuern und dem schielenden Sternengucker eine Brille verpassen. Die letzte Chance für die NASA, sich nach vielen Pannen zu rehabilitieren.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on the first Spacehab mission and the retrieval of the EURECA spacecraft.
The Space Shuttle Endeavour lifted off some 5 hours ago, delayed slightly by an airplane that had wandered into the restricted airspace. Once there, the crew of 6 got busy. On Thursday, they'll work to retrieve a European satellite that's been orbiting now for nearly a year. Endeavour's crew also will practice some spacewalking and will use the world's first commercial laboratory module, one that's making its orbital debut. Astronauts were setting the shuttle to tumbling to shake some liquid helium in experiments for the refueling of satellites. Astronauts waved and wiggled about the shuttle's robot arm in a little trial run for that. The 6-person crew is planning to use that arm on Thursday to snare a European satellite. Astronauts also are running tests in the world's first commercial space laboratory.
The NASA team has done a really great job of preparing us for our flight. I think both David and I just can't wait to get there.
Well, we're excited about it, and while you're up there, we're going to be down here trying to support the space program and the space station. As you know, we had a very distinguished commission looking at the whole space station project. They recommended some redesign and some management changes at NASA, but I think this should give us a great deal of credibility. We've got some important votes coming up in the Congress in the next 2 days, while you're up there, we're going to be down here voting on this project, and I very much hope that we can prevail. And I think, frankly, your success and your work will help us to prevail. You're doing as much up there to help us win the votes down here as anyone, and I thank you for that.
Well, Mr. President, we're very gratified by your support of the space station. We certainly all consider it to be an immensely important project in continuing our leadership in science and technology.
Thank you. Let me just say one last thing about something that's very important to me. I understand that later in the mission, Janice and Brian are going to be talking with school children around the world. And you may know that my daughter is a big fan of the space program. She's off at the summer language camp now, but I want to just tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you're making an international education project out of this mission. That's very important to me.
Mr. President, we find that using amateur radio is an excellent way of communicating with children all around the world, and we're also able to excite them by using space and science and letting them see space and science in action. We're able to excite them and hope they'll study harder.
You have no idea. You may be on this mission creating thousands of scientists for the future just by the power of your example and by this direct communication. And I think sometimes we underestimate the impact that human contact in an enormously impressive setting like this can have on children all across the world, not only those with whom you'll talk, but millions of others who will just see it and know that it happened. I want to thank all of you for the wonderful job you've done. We're very proud of you, and we're very proud of all the NASA folks down here who are supporting you. I want to encourage you and say again that I'm behind you, this administration is behind you, and I think the American people are behind you.
President Clinton firmly grounded at the White House talking with the crew of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. The Endeavour is on the first full day of its 8-day mission.
For Friday's planned retrieval of a European satellite. They're testing the maneuverability of the shuttle's robot arm, which will be used to grab the satellite. The shuttle's mission has been extended by 1 day, giving astronauts time to practice walking in space.
Nach dem geglückten Start von Cape Canaveral aus blieb den Raumfahrern nicht viel Zeit zum Verschnaufen. Mit dem Öffnen der Ladeluke begann der Arbeitsalltag. Hier ist das Versuchslabor, in dem Experimente ausgeführt werden sollen, verstaut. Ein Astronaut installiert den Tunnel, durch den man ins Innere kriechen kann. Der Weg durch die Röhre ist beschwerlich, das Labor ist winzig. In den Boxen an den Wänden sind Insekten, Garnelen und Ratten, an denen die Schwerelosigkeit getestet wird. Doch das Aufregendste steht den Astronauten noch bevor. Auf dem Programm steht auch ein ausgedehnter Weltraumspaziergang.
And U.S. President Clinton phoned the astronauts today to assure them of his support for NASA's space station project. The crew, meanwhile, is closing in on EURECA, the European satellite it is to retrieve on Thursday using the shuttle's robot arm.
The astronauts on board the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour got a special phone call Tuesday from the White House. President Bill Clinton congratulated crew members on their successful launch Monday, and he said their work could help build support for a redesigned space station under debate in Congress.
I think this should give us a great deal of credibility. We've got some important votes coming up in the Congress in the next 2 days. While you're up there, we're going to be down here voting on this project, and I very much hope that we can prevail. And I think, frankly, your success and your work will help us to prevail. You're doing as much up there to help us win the votes down here as anyone, and I thank you for that.
Well, Mr. President, we're very gratified by your support of the space station. We certainly all consider it to be an immensely important project in continuing our leadership in science and technology.
Earlier, the crew conducted an experiment firing jets to make the shuttle tumble. It was an effort to shake up liquid helium stored in tanks to see how it reacts in space.
The Space Shuttle Endeavour crew members had to reschedule Wednesday's experiments after they learned one experiment would have brought them dangerously close to a piece of space debris. Even tiny objects can do major damage to the shuttle since the spacecraft orbits at speeds of thousands of kilometers per hour. Thursday, crew members plan to retrieve a European research satellite from orbit.
pulled the 5-ton satellite into its payload bay. The only glitch, the satellite's 2 antennas failed to fully retract. The crew may try to fix that during tomorrow's spacewalk. The satellite retrieval was a highlight of Endeavour's 8-day mission. The EURECA satellite, as it's called, has been gathering data in orbit since last August. Now, Earthbound scientists will have a chance to study the results. NASA's proposed space station Freedom has survived a close call in Congress. By a margin of just 1 vote, the House agreed to keep it alive at a cost of $2 billion a year. NASA calls the space station the future of technology, but critics have another name, orbiting pork barrel.
Der Raumfähre Endeavour haben heute die Hauptaufgabe ihrer Mission erfüllt. Sie holten den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA an Bord. Die wiederverwendbare Plattform hatte knapp 1 Jahr lang wissenschaftliche Daten gesammelt.
Die Ladeaktion im All kam erst nach einer tagelangen Verfolgungsjagd zustande. Aus zunächst 8000 Kilometern Entfernung pirschte sich das Shuttle bis auf 11 Meter an den Satelliten heran. Heute Nachmittag um 15:55 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit war es dann soweit. 2 Astronauten hakten den Greifarm der Fähre an dem Satelliten ein. Dann wurde EURECA in die Ladebucht geholt. Kleine Probleme mit den Antennen verzögerten die Aktion, die NASA-Computer geplant hatten. Über 70 Experimente hatte das unbemannte und vollautomatische Himmelslabor EURECA abgewickelt. Die Astronauten der Raumfähre sollen mit ihrer 4,5 Tonnen Fracht am 29. Juni zur Erde zurückkehren.
Mehrere Tage lang hatten die Astronauten den in 474 Kilometer Höhe kreisenden Satelliten Stück für Stück mit der Raumfähre eingeholt. Die Bergung selbst verlief heute wie geplant.
Gut gemacht, so lautete der Kommentar aus dem Bodenkontrollzentrum in Houston, Texas. Das Lob galt den Astronauten. Ohne Probleme holten sie den Forschungssatelliten EURECA zum Rückflug auf die Erde an Bord. Mit einem Greifarm hackten die Raumfahrer vom Shuttle aus den Satelliten fest und zogen ihn in die Ladebucht. EURECA war seit August 1992 im All. Seitdem führten Forscher aus 8 Ländern ferngesteuert 71 Experimente durch. Die Bergung gehörte zu den Hauptaufgaben des derzeitigen Shuttlefluges.
Van opgevangen die met een snelheid van 15 km per seconde de satelliet zijn binnengedrongen. Het naar de aarde terugbrengen lijkt een fluitje van een cent.
Nee, dat is vrij ingewikkeld, want in de ruimte is het ten eerste driedimensionaal, alles beweegt driedimensionaal. Ten tweede bewegen alle 2 dingen, de shuttle en die satelliet, ongeveer met 8 kilometer per seconde. Dus dan is een rendezvous een vrij moeilijke klus.
Rechts in beeld maakt de robotarm van de Space Shuttle vast aan de satelliet. Deze beelden seinden de astronauten vanmiddag rond 3:30 naar de aarde. Toen zorgde ook een alledaags aardsprobleem, waar iedere automobilist wel eens last van heeft gehad, voor een flinke kater. 2 antennes van de satelliet schoven niet volledig in elkaar. Ze bleven haken achter het dikke deken dat de satelliet beschermt tegen hitte en kou.
Ik denk echt dat het gewoon een probleem is van een beetje harder duwen. Die motoren in de schouders van die antennes die zijn natuurlijk niet zo sterk om daar op zo'n lange afstand op 4 meter tegen een vrij stijf deken aan te drukken. We hopen dat het lukt.
De bemanning van de Endeavour doet morgen een nieuwe bergingspoging. Desnoods stappen ze de ruimte in om de antennes af te breken. Net als vandaag kunnen belangstellenden ook morgen terecht in het ruimtevaart-expositiecentrum in Noordwijk om de bergingspoging via een rechtstreekse televisieverbinding te volgen.
Gelang es den 4,5 Tonnen schweren Satelliten gegen 15:50 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit mit ihren Greifarmen zu bergen. Um sich ihm zu nähern, hatte das Raumschiff 3 Tage gebraucht. Es befand sich auf seiner 48. Erdumrundung, 476 Kilometer über Australien. Der Satellit hatte 10 Monate lang Sonne und Milchstraße erforscht. Nun sollen die Daten auf der Erde ausgewertet werden.
Der Endeavour da absolvieren. Präsident Clinton wobei das Gespräch mit Präsident Clinton wohl zu den leichteren Aufgaben gehörte. In den 4 Tagen im All musste viel erledigt werden, vom Purzelbaumschlagen mit der Raumfähre über Heliumexperimente bis hin zum Kampf gegen den Weltraummüll. Die wichtigste Aufgabe stand heute auf dem Programm. Der Forschungssatellit EURECA musste wieder eingefangen werden.
Dieser Start am 31. Juli 1992 in Cape Canaveral war in jeder Hinsicht eine Premiere. In der Ladebucht der Raumfähre Atlantis der größte und schwerste je in Europa gebaute Satellit. Gewicht über 4,5 Tonnen. An einem Ladearm wird er ins All ausgesetzt. Und Mit eigener Kraft schießt er sich in eine Höhe von 508 Kilometern über der Erde. Doch sein Name ist Programm. EURECA, das heißt rückholbare Weltraumplattform. Zum ersten Mal ist geplant, einen europäischen Satelliten nach fast 11 Monaten Aufenthalt im All auf die Erde zurückzuholen, seine gesammelten Daten dort auszuwerten und ihn gegebenenfalls wieder zu verwenden. Was in der Computersimulierung so einfach aussieht, sollte heute Nachmittag real passieren. Die Annäherung klappte wie vorgesehen. Um 15:49 Uhr über Australien nähert sich der Ladearm der Fähre und greift nach dem Raumlabor. Doch das Einladen in die Ladebucht ist nicht möglich. Eines der Sonnenpaddel hatte sich nicht richtig zusammengefaltet. Die Sicherheit der Raumfähre wäre beim Einladen gefährdet gewesen. Lange Gesichter im Kontrollzentrum in Darmstadt. Ist die ganze Mission dadurch gefährdet?
Nein, sie ist es nicht, denn inzwischen haben die Astronauten die Aktion erfolgreich abgeschlossen. Und wir kommen zum
amerikanischen Raumführer Endeavour haben den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA geborgen. Der Greifarm der Endeavour hatte sich am Satelliten festgehakt. Mit diesem Arm wird er später in die Ladebucht der Fähre gezogen und dort für die Rückkehr zur Erde verstaut. Die Bergung des Satelliten gehört zu den Hauptaufgaben des 56. Shuttlefluges. Am 29. Juni soll die Endeavour wieder in Cape Canaveral landen.
Nach dreitägiger Annäherung ist es nun endlich gelungen, den Satelliten an Bord zu holen. EURECA kreist seit fast einem Jahr im Weltraum. Die Bergung gehörte zu den Hauptaufgaben des 56. Shuttlefluges.
Mission into the vehicle's cargo bay.
Endeavour, Eureka. There's a lot of smiling faces down here.
The crew members had caught up with that European research satellite EURECA earlier Thursday, and using the shuttle's robotic arm, they grabbed onto it. The lowering of EURECA into the cargo bay was delayed due to the failure of the satellite's 2 communications antennas to fully retract. 2 of the astronauts are scheduled for a spacewalk on Friday to hopefully fix that.
Für ein Riesenteleskop, das auf dem chilenischen Andengipfel Cerro Paranal zur Weltraumforschung installiert werden soll, wurden 4 Spiegelträger gebraucht, 8,20 Meter im Durchmesser. Es war eine Aufgabe für Tüftler und Glasexperten, und so bekamen die Schott-Glaswerke in Mainz den Zuschlag. Heute wurde die erste der 4 riesigen Kontaktlinsen offiziell übergeben, ein Wunderwerk der Technik.
Der Countdown läuft. In wenigen Minuten werden die Techniker der Schott-Glaswerke den ersten von insgesamt 4 Riesenspiegeln aus ihrer Obhut entlassen. Herzklopfen bei den Verantwortlichen, ob auch wirklich alles in Ordnung ist. Ein letzter prüfender Check der Auftraggeber. Alles wird bis ins kleinste Detail kontrolliert. Mithilfe starker Saugnäpfe wird der 22 Tonnen schwere Teleskopspiegel, der einen Durchmesser von 8,20 Meter hat, aber nur knapp 18 Zentimeter dick ist, von einem Kran vorsichtig hochgehoben und auf ein anderes Podest gehievt. Das ist von großer juristischer Bedeutung, denn dieses Podest gehört schon dem Auftraggeber, der Europäischen Südsternwarte ESO. Für Fehler oder Schäden, die bei der weiteren Bearbeitung eventuell noch auftreten könnten, sind die Mainzer dann nicht mehr haftbar zu machen. Die offizielle Übergabe ist ein Fest für alle Beteiligten. Fast 2 Jahre hat die Produktion des Spiegels gedauert. Eine Zitterpartie, denn mit diesem Projekt hat Schott absolutes Neuland betreten. Hier Archivbilder vom Guss. Ein Scheitern hätte Millionenverluste bedeutet. Jeder einzelne Spiegel stellt einen Wert von ca. 14 Millionen Mark dar. Bei Schott hofft man mit diesem Projekt die international führende Stellung ausbauen zu können. Die Spiegel werden nach Chile gebracht. Dort entsteht ein Großfernrohr. Herkömmliche Teleskope arbeiten mit viel kleineren Spiegeln als das neue, das jetzt in Chile in Bau ist. Es wird die optische Kraft von 4 Spiegeln bündeln. Dann wird es möglich sein, tiefer ins Weltall zu schauen als jemals zuvor.
Astronauts David Lowe and Jeff Wisoff floated out of the shuttle's new tunnel hatch Friday morning to begin their spacewalk. Ground controllers added nearly an hour to the original 4 hours for the spacewalk so that the astronauts would have time to work on the jammed antennas on the EURECA satellite. Lowe climbed onto the shuttle's 50-foot-long robot arm, and with mission specialist Nancy Sherlock at the controls, was maneuvered beside the 5-ton satellite.
Endeavour Houston for Dave. Keep the pressure on at this time. We're going to attempt a command to latch.
Okay, go.
It took several pushes, plus a long-distance radio signal from European Space Agency engineers in Germany to get the antennas locked into place for the satellite's return to Earth.
We have declared victory. Both of the antennas are now latched.
The unplanned satellite repair mission provided NASA with exactly the type of spacewalking exercise it wants. With the Hubble Space Telescope repair mission set for December, the space agency is trying to get as much spacewalking experience as possible.
The Hubble Space Telescope revisit mission is going to be relying heavily on doing a lot of fine alignment tasks with an astronaut on the end of the arm and manipulating a heavy payload, a 500 or 600 pound payload with fine tolerances. We're going to try to, basically do a proof of concept of that, as well as most of our space station, almost all of our space station tasks involve an astronaut on the end of an arm, performing duties.
The astronauts practiced maneuvering each other as if they were a bulky piece of equipment. They tried out new spacewalking techniques. There was even some time for sightseeing.
That's Salt Lake. That must be Salt Lake way up there. It is. This is incredible. I never really was by now. But I'm only supposed to be looking at water. I have to close my eyes for this. That's right.
The spectacular view is just one of the benefits of working more than 250 nautical miles in space. Tony Clark, CNN, reporting.
In a festive mood after this morning's wake-up call, Madonna's Holiday. Yesterday, 2 astronauts took a 6-hour walk in space. David Lowe used some old-fashioned elbow grease to latch 2 antennas on the captured European space satellite. The rest of the walk was a training exercise.
Endeavour will spend the day performing more scientific experiments. Yesterday, they completed 2 exhausting days of satellite snaring and spacewalking. So this morning, they slept an extra hour. The rest of the mission will be devoted to work in the privately funded Spacehab laboratory. The shuttle is scheduled to land on Tuesday.
Friday, 2 of the astronauts walked in space for almost 6 hours. They practiced for a future mission to repair the Hubble Space Telescope, and they tucked away 2 wayward antennas of the European space satellite, which had been put in the shuttle's cargo bay the day before. CNN's Tony Clark will have a live interview with the astronauts at 17:22 GMT, about 5.5 hours from now. That's World News for now. I'm Relita Vasilova. We'll have more news in an hour.
Zu gelten. So oft jedenfalls musste Astronaut David Law Anlauf nehmen, um die Antennen des Forschungssatelliten EURECA zu sichern, der zuvor per Roboterarm eingefangen worden war. Der ursprünglich nur als leichtes Training vorgesehene Spaziergang im freien All geriet so doch noch zu harter 4-stündiger Arbeit. Denn wäre er nicht erfolgreich verlaufen, hätte es Probleme bei der Landung der Endeavour geben können. Zeit für Gefühle bleibt da kaum, wie sie Law empfand, als er an den Rand der Weltraumfähre kletterte. Mein Gott, sagte er, ich dachte, ich würde jeden Moment 250 Meilen tief stürzen. Das ist jedoch so gut wie unmöglich, denn ein neuer Sicherungsmechanismus, der einen Fuß der Astronauten mit dem beweglichen Ladekran der Fähre verbindet, verhindert das.
Shuttle Endeavour are devoting their 6th day in space to science experiments. The shuttle commander is spending part of the day snapping pictures of Earth in a project commissioned by students in Charleston, South Carolina. One experiment involving a fuel cell is on hold because of complications. The astronauts will spend the rest of their mission working in a new onboard space laboratory.
Der Raumfähre Endeavour ist ein voller Erfolg. Bei ihrem Weltraumspaziergang gelang es den beiden amerikanischen Astronauten, den Schaden an dem europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA zu beheben. Die Reparatur in 473 Kilometer Höhe war komplizierter als angenommen. 3 Tage dauerte es immerhin, bis es David Lowe und Jeff Wissoff schafften, die verklemmten Antennen der Plattform einzuklappen. Größtes Problem der Astronauten, sich in den schweren Raumanzügen zu bewegen. Am Dienstag soll das Shuttle zur Erde zurückkehren.
International.
Hello, I'm Relita Vasilova. We interrupt our regular programming at this time to bring you a special report on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. In just a moment, we will be talking with some of the astronauts on board. But first, CNN's Tony Clark takes a quick look at the day's activities.
Endeavour Houston with you on the west.
Endeavour's crew had a full day of running experiments and taking photographs of Earth.
Endeavour Houston for David. We've analyzed the attitude, and you're go to open the viewport.
Thanks, Jay. It's happening right now.
Cameras located in the payload bay were used to take photographs of various parts of the Earth. Those photographs will be compared with similar pictures taken 20 years ago from Skylab.
All you can see is a beautiful view out of Africa there.
We just got a couple of good shots of Lake Chad.
Beautiful. We're looking over your shoulder.
Meanwhile, in the new Spacehab module, the astronauts ran through experiments designed to improve long shuttle flights as well as space station operations.
Endeavour Houston, we like your current configuration.
They tried recycling wastewater and ran an experiment to determine how easily fluids flow in space. That experiment may provide a means for refueling satellites while in orbit. At one point, pilot Brian Duffy briefly shut down one of the shuttle's 3 fuel cells. NASA wants to find out if fuel cells can be turned off when they aren't needed and then turned back on in space as a means of conserving fuel.
Houston Endeavour, I'm sure you're watching. We just took the react valves for fuel cell 3 to closed, and it looks like the H2 react valve stayed open.
Despite the problem with the fuel cell, Endeavour's astronauts are still glowing from the successful satellite capture and spacewalk. Tony Clark, CNN, reporting.
And Tony Clark joins me now for an exclusive interview via satellite with the Endeavour astronauts. Tony?
In fact, we have Commander Ron Gravy and mission specialist David Lowe on board the Shuttle Endeavour. David, we watched you yesterday during that almost 6-hour spacewalk along with your fellow astronaut Jeff Wisoff. It looked exciting to watch. How was it out there?
Tony, it was one of the most exciting things I've ever done in my life. We were very fortunate that the EVA went very well. It went just about as we had planned it. We got a little bit of extra work out there helping to fix the antennas on EURECA, but the best thing of all was the spectacular view you get out there.
David, some astronauts who have done spacewalks have indicated that there is a feeling when they first get out into the payload bay, a feeling of falling when they look down to Earth. Did you have that feeling?
There was a little while out there when I had that feeling. What it really is when you're inside the spaceship here and you look out at the Earth, you never feel as though you're falling, but you once you get outside and you see really nothing below you, you know, I've been up here for 5 days now, and I've got another 20 days in the past, and I never had that feeling before, but there was a while there yesterday when I really felt as though I was hanging onto the handrail 250 miles above the Earth.
You looked precarious on the end of the arm, especially as Nancy was moving you across the payload bay to get you in position to work on the EURECA satellite. That seems like mentally that would be an odd position to be in when everything else seems canted to the way you were in fact standing.
Well, Tony, it didn't really feel that way at all. In fact, that's something that's no different from being anywhere else in space. There really is no up or down. In fact, you get used to unusual attitudes, and the arm, Nancy was driving me around very, very smoothly, and it was not any problem at all being in weird orientation.
I don't believe that people really understand or can appreciate perhaps the coordination that you, and in this case Nancy, had to have in telling, you had to tell her, move me a certain amount of distance. I mean, all of your movements have to be interpreted by her, enacted by her. That takes up quite a bit of coordination, doesn't it?
Well, Tony, it takes a lot of coordination, and it's not really just between Nancy and I, but in fact the entire crew. Ron was inside yesterday pretty much keeping control of the entire operation, all 6 of us. In fact, Jeff and I came back inside after 6 hours or so outside, and the guys on the inside were every bit as tired as we were, you know, doing the work on the outside. But the coordination is something that we had practiced, we had thought about, and we spent many hours discussing in Houston in our sims, for the last 6 or 8 months prior to flying.
One other thing, David, about the spacewalk, is it physically tiring out there, the work itself? Does it wear you out?
There was only a couple different instances where it was tiring. Actually, when I was pushing on the antennas, and it was really just because of the position I was in, and there was nothing really for me to react the forces through. It's like doing isometric exercises for about 2 minutes or so. That was about the only time that I was really tired. Everything else was not that big of a deal.
Commander, you, the other day, besides being in charge of this shuttle mission, it was your responsibility to fly around the EURECA satellite, fly manually. And I was thinking, at the time you were doing that, your background is as a fighter pilot. A fighter pilot in a jet sees things go by very quickly. My impression in watching the video that comes down from space is that everything, as a viewer, seems to move slowly. Do you have to change the way you fly, change the visual cues that you use in flying?
Well, Tony, it is quite different. It has been likened to formation flying and high-performance aircraft, but it is a very different task. If you're flying two jets in close formation, both jets are being disturbed by atmospheric conditions. They're bouncing around relative to one another, so there's no time to think about the reaction that you're going to put in or the stick control input that you're going to put in. You have to do it immediately. Out here in space, there are no atmospheric disturbances. It's just gravity, and gravity is very, very smooth. So you have the two craft flying seamlessly in close coordination with one another, with nothing disturbing one, not the other. Any time that you do see a trend developing that you have to correct, you have time to think to yourself, here's what I need to do, here's what's happening, and here's how I'm going to counter it. So it's actually an easier task, and I think that probably came down in the camera views. It almost looks like it's a slow motion task. We don't do anything very rapidly up here.
Commander, this is your fourth shuttle flight. Does it seem routine now, getting the hang of it?
Well, certainly once you're on orbit, it seems familiar, but when you go out to the launch pad, it certainly doesn't seem very routine. I think you could fly 25 times, and launch day would still be a real exciting day.
Both of you have worked with the European Space Agency on this flight. There has been international involvement in other shuttle flights. There are cosmonauts that are currently training at the Johnson Space Center. There have been Japanese space shuttle missions, Italian-oriented shuttle missions. How important do you all think international cooperation is to the U.S. space program?
I think it's very important to the U.S. space program. I think it's the way we're going to do business in space in the future. And it's important to the United States to demonstrate that it is a world leader in space and continue to hold the premier position among spacefaring nations.
Then how do you think the U.S.'s, NASA's international partners perhaps felt this week while you all were up, and they would have seen the U.S. House of Representatives only approve the space station by one vote? You talked to the president earlier, prior to the vote. How do you think they feel about that, and how do you feel about the future of the space program?
Well, I think it's very important to the United States to continue the space station. That's where our future is in the near term. The Europeans and the Japanese and the Canadians look to us for leadership. We are all committed to the space station, and we are confident that we're going to go ahead and build it. I don't think it's so important which space station we build at this point, but rather that we get on with it and do complete a program.
Some people have suggested without a space station, there is no reason to have a space shuttle program. Agree with that? Disagree with that?
Well, I think I'd turn it around and say that the space shuttle is a requirement for the space station. That is, the construction of the space station depends upon the space shuttle, and the space shuttle itself is a very utilitarian vehicle, and it can do the job very well.
Is there then perhaps a problem, a public relations kind of problem in explaining to people, making the public, the politicians, understand the importance of things like protein crystal growth, some of the fluid transfer experiments that you all are running on this this mission, some of the scientific experiments, the spacewalk, the satellite capture are all very glamorous, they are all very exciting looking, but some of the real work, some of the purpose for the shuttle is not as captivating.
Well, I think the shuttle's got many purposes. Of course, stay in day out science is why we're up here in the first place, and that would be the objective of a space station as well. As you said, some of the more glamorous things that we do require a little less depth of knowledge than some of the scientific experimentation we get in. We have to get into a great deal of detail to figure out what we're doing on some of these experiments ourselves, and the training involved is quite intensive.
One of the things I forgot to mention prior to this flight in the interviews at the Johnson Space Center, David, you said that you were, I think, living right. You were picked to do a spacewalk. You were also the person at the controls of the robot arm during the capture of the EURECA satellite. Was it difficult to capture the satellite?
It was not nearly as difficult as I thought it could be. You wouldn't believe how well Ron flew this vehicle. It was, in fact, it was easier than, in the end, than a whole lot of the training sessions that I'd had. Ron just basically made that satellite, made a relative motion so that it was just rock solid. It was just pretty easy actually reaching out and grabbing it, and I felt very fortunate for that.
Is it, once you have grappled it, is there a feeling, does the shuttle, and this may sound odd, but any movement in the shuttle, are there other indications other than visually and your electronics, your computer screen showing that you've got it? Any signs that you've got a hold of that? It's almost a 5-ton piece of equipment out there.
Tony, I just asked Ron, I don't think either of us actually felt anything. We had several indications on board that we had a good capture, but none of us, you know, again, and that's a good indication of the very low relative rates that we had between the two vehicles.
Tony, visually we could see that the arm was pulling its stunt, but that was the only real cue that there was in physical, aside from the other information coming to us on our data screen.
One of the last satellite retrieval missions, I think most of our viewers will remember, is the Intelsat, where 3 astronauts had to get out into the shuttle's payload bay and physically grab the satellite by hand. This one was designed differently. This one was designed to be retrieved. Do you think that's the way the satellites will be in the future, to allow both work on them and perhaps retrieval in the future?
Well, as you said, retrieval was always planned for EURECA. I think that if I were funding a satellite, I would certainly make it retrievable these days.
And one of the things that you all have shown, as your colleagues prior to you have shown, is that it gives the opportunity to show the effectiveness of astronauts in space, that people who talk about man not needing to be in space, you all have given an example of the kinds of things that can be done with humans in space, I assume.
I think the key to having astronauts in space is that it provides versatility that you just can't get without them. Many of the experiments that we perform up here could perhaps be done one time in an unintended fashion, but to do them over and to improve upon the results from one experiment, that'll take to another, you really need a crew on board.
One last thing, this is the first time the Spacehab module has been flown in the shuttle. How has it worked?
Tony, so far, I've been very happy with it. It's just performed like a champ. Had basically no problems at all with the module itself.
And it gives you more room.
And I got to say another good thing. I mean, it's greatly expanded the volume and the work area that we can use. We're carrying along 22 experiments that we're performing while we're up here. So this is again just showing the versatility of the space shuttle.
Mission Specialist David Lowe, Commander Ron Gravy, thank you all very much. This concludes our live interview with the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Thank you both, and we will be back in just a moment with more on the Space Shuttle mission.
Tony, the astronauts spent today basically doing experiments that mostly were privately funded. Do you think that private funds could provide more independence and could be a secure source of funding for space research?
Well, one thing, NASA did pay. They are leasing a lot of the space in the Spacehab module. And so one of the things that we will see is more and more private funding. One of the best examples, though, is the Spacehab module. The Spacehab module is something that is commercially built, commercially funded, and NASA has leased it for the next 5 years. And so I think one of the things we are going to see is more of an interest, a private industry interest in space exploration.
The space station Freedom was almost scrapped by Congress this week. You even posed this question to the astronauts. What kind of an international response did that get?
Well, that is a point of concern. In fact, the various governments around the country, around the world rather, that have been involved with the United States program, space program, and other programs, it raises concern on their parts about whether or not the United States will follow through. The Japanese, the European Space Agency are all involved in the space station, and if the United States decides to back out, it leaves them in a vulnerable position because they've already promised to give funds and equipment and the like.
We were talking about cooperation. What about competition? Up to now, we had space competition was basically a competition between two political rival systems. What is the future of cooperation?
There is still some competition. The competition is primarily in the launch vehicle area. There is the Ariane launch vehicle. The Japanese are working on a launch vehicle. The Chinese have a launch vehicle. The Russians also have launch vehicles. And so there is competition on the part of the various countries to put satellites in orbit. There is also some competition still between Russia and the United States in terms of a space station. The Russians have the Mir space station in operation, and they have taken people from a variety of countries up there. Different experiments can be placed on the Mir space station, and so there is still some competition there, but what we are starting to see now is more cooperation, cooperation between the United States and Russia in using the space station, the Mir space station. A U.S. astronaut will go up and spend time in the Mir space station. There are currently 2 cosmonauts that are training at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, to go up on the space shuttle. There have been Japanese U.S. space shuttle missions, Italian U.S. space shuttle missions, so cooperation is becoming a key.
And talking of international cooperation, do you think international cooperation could help Russia, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine resolve the differences they experience now in trying to divide up the legacy of the Soviet Union, the space research legacy of the Soviet Union?
Space becomes a bigger issue than does the political boundaries. The political boundaries that separate either countries or regions can be focused then instead on a space program. And what I think we are starting to see and what we will see in the future is more cooperation with everyone focused on getting into space.
Can you discuss a little bit more the future space programs and plans of Asia and Europe?
Well, there is a lot of interest. The Japanese, the Chinese are all very interested in space exploration. One of the things, though, space exploration costs so much money that's one of the reasons we're going to see more countries get involved, but get involved in joint ventures, joint operations.
Thank you very much, Tony Clark. We'll be back with more news in just a moment. Skylab 20 years ago. Less than 1 hour ago, CNN International asked the astronauts what it feels like to walk in outer space.
When you're inside the spaceship here and you look out at the Earth, you never feel as though you're falling, but you once you get outside and you see really nothing below you, you know, I've been up here for 5 days now, and I've got another 20 days in the past, and I never had that feeling before, but there was a while there yesterday when I really felt as though I was hanging onto the handrail 250 miles above the Earth.
We will have continuing coverage of Endeavour's mission.
In 473 Kilometern Höhe und bei der galaktischen Geschwindigkeit von 28.000 Stundenkilometern einen Satelliten zu reparieren, dafür braucht man schon Fingerspitzengefühl. Das Kunststück ist gelungen und auch sonst ist die Mission der Endeavour vom Erfolg gekrönt. Am Dienstag soll das Shuttle nach 8 Tagen im All zur Erde zurückkehren.
Der erste Schritt ins All. David Lowe und Jeff Bissoff beschreiben ihn als atemberaubend. Ganze 5 Stunden verbrachten sie außerhalb der Endeavour. Erst dann gelang es, die verklemmten Antennen des europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA einzuklappen. Die Arbeit dient gleichzeitig als Übung. Bei der nächsten Mission sollen Reparaturen am Weltraumteleskop Hubble durchgeführt werden. Größtes Problem, sich in den schweren Weltraumanzügen zu bewegen und der Einsatz der Werkzeuge. Übrigens, die Mission ist auch ein Jubiläum. Mit David Lowe unternahm der 50. Mensch einen Weltraumspaziergang.
Dry conditions and very hot in the western areas of the United States, with rain showers sprinkled about the midsection of the country and also in the eastern Great Lakes as that front moves by. Hope you have a terrific day. That's a look at world weather up to the minute.
Fluid behaves much differently in the weightlessness of outer space. That's just one of the scientific principles to which the crew of the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour devoted their attention Sunday. The experiment, using water-tainted blue, is meant to determine the possibility of refueling in space. NASA says everything on the Endeavour is running smoothly. It is set to land on Tuesday.
The House this week let another big science project survive, but by the narrowest of margins. By just one vote, the House approved an amendment to continue funding for Space Station Freedom. President Clinton had lobbied hard to keep the project and its jobs intact. On Thursday, astronauts snared the European satellite EURECA after a 3-day chase. Shuttle Commander Ron Grabby and mission specialist David Lowe manipulated the robot arm to snare the 5-ton satellite.
Houston Endeavour, we've captured.
Endeavour, Eureka. There's a lot of smiling faces down here.
Let me first commend NASA, first of all, the orbiter crew for this absolutely flawless rendezvous, which really worked like clockwork.
However, there was a problem with EURECA's 2 communications antennas. They didn't retract completely. So on Friday, astronauts David Lowe and Jeff Wissoff floated in the shuttle's payload bay for nearly 6 hours to repair it. The astronauts also conducted a number of experiments and chatted with the nation's commander-in-chief.
Astronauts are packing up their gear and preparing for Tuesday's planned return to Earth. U.S. space officials decided Monday not to extend the shuttle mission beyond Tuesday morning's scheduled landing. In an interview Monday, the shuttle astronauts lobbied for continued work on a permanent space station, a multi-billion-dollar project now under consideration by the U.S. Congress.
We want to inspire you with the forecast for the North American continent. Dry weather to the south and the west with some snowflakes in the western areas of Montana. You'll find some areas of rain continuing with the front, a few scattered showers there, tropical showers, especially in the afternoon hours in the southern states. That's a look at world weather up to the minute. Have a great day.
Astronauts on board the Shuttle Endeavour packed up their equipment today and got ready to end their 8-day mission. If the weather's right, the shuttle will land Tuesday morning at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. CNN's Tony Clark reports.
Endeavour Houston. We have good comm.
Endeavour's astronauts spent the day wrapping up their work, testing the orbiter's re-entry jets, and taking photographs of Earth.
The weather's been just absolutely spectacular over certain regions, and we've captured some really interesting views.
The only problem for the astronauts has been a wastewater recycling experiment. Despite several hours of work on Monday, the crew was never able to unclog one of the lines and get the experiment operating properly.
Thanks for cleaning it up, getting it ready for entry, and we'd like you to button it up and knock it off.
With their mission almost over, the crew fielded questions from reporters in a wide-ranging news conference from space. David Lowe said he was pleased with last week's spacewalk, saying he and Jeff Wissoff did almost everything they set out to do, in particular, showing that large objects can be moved easily in space. That's a requirement for the Hubble telescope repair mission scheduled for later this year.
We found out for the most part that things were fairly easily accomplished.
Crew members were also pleased with their new Spacehab module, and they made a pitch for building the space station Freedom and continued space exploration.
Sometimes it's probably difficult to look at today and say that it's important that you invest for the future because you have current problems, but we believe that it's a real good idea to do that.
Ground controllers considered giving the astronauts an additional day in space if the wastewater experiment could be fixed, but when it wasn't, they decided to bring the shuttle home. Weather permitting, the landing is planned for 8:44 a.m. Eastern Time at the Kennedy Space Center. Tony Clark, CNN reporting.
as well. North American continent, rain showers heavy at times across the midwestern United States, even a little bit of snow in the northern sections of the Rockies in the United States. Western provinces of Canada, rain showers there, and go south and east in the United States, you'll find rain also.
The U.S. space station program has won another victory. The U.S. House of Representatives voted late Monday to keep the proposed funding for the controversial project. Opponents had argued that the $2.1 billion price tag is just too expensive. The project still needs approval, though, from the U.S. Senate. Astronauts aboard the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour will spend an extra day in space. The U.S. Space Agency has postponed the landing of the shuttle until Wednesday. The reason? Concern over cloudy weather at the shuttle's Florida landing strip. The 6 astronauts will return to Earth with the European science satellite that they captured and tucked into the shuttle's cargo bay. The U.S. Space Agency commissioned an independent study to find out exactly how reliable that software is. CNN's science correspondent Miles O'Brien reports on the findings.
Genesis go from engine start.
7.
The most complex manned spacecraft in the world wouldn't get off the launch pad
main engine shutdown
without a computer program to control its flight. An error in that critical software could have disastrous consequences.
It could cause a serious accident like Challenger if the right kind of error occurred.
An independent report commissioned by NASA suggests the space agency needs to do more to prevent software errors. According to the National Research Council report, the shuttle's onboard computers have gone into orbit with 8 so-called Severity 1 errors, which could have produced the loss of the shuttle or its crew if the flight computer had used the flawed portion of the program. In all, there have been 12 less severe software errors in shuttle computers during a flight. None threatened the crew, but 3 threatened to shorten shuttle missions.
I went back around and I didn't get it. I mean, I had a good...
In May of '92, 3 crew members aboard the Shuttle Endeavour performed an unplanned 8.5-hour spacewalk to capture the Intelsat satellite after a remote arm failed to do the job. The problem was traced to faulty software.
There was never really any real danger of losing Intelsat, but it was an important problem, and it demonstrated some deficiencies in the software development procedures.
Officials at NASA say their software easily outperforms industry standards for complex systems.
The error rates are very low and does not indicate to me that there's a near-term potential for a Challenger type of accident caused by the software.
The report recommends NASA set guidelines for contractors who develop shuttle software, establish software safety standards, increase its oversight of software development and testing, and create an independent panel to certify software safety. In all, there are 22 recommendations. NASA officials say they will consider them all, but they defend the way they do business.
I don't believe that it is a fundamental weakness in the software right now that we have a serious lack of safety oversight.
Shuttle software contains 400,000 lines of computer code. As complex as that is, it is small compared to future NASA programs. Flight software for Space Station Freedom could require 5 million lines of code.
If they aren't going to address these safety issues, then they really ought to reconsider whether or not they want to go ahead.
The report authors say the importance of their recommendations will grow, along with the dependence on highly complex, high-flying software. Miles O'Brien, CNN, reporting.
Endeavour this morning, in fact, had a couple of times for it. It's now been ordered, though, to remain in orbit 1 extra day because of concerns about these low clouds, unsettled weather at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Endeavour's commander got the word from the shuttle communicator, Kurt Brown.
Roger, Ron. After evaluating our current weather and our forecast weather, we are going to wave off today. We're going to let y'all stay out 1 more day.
The Endeavour now is scheduled to land tomorrow at 7:59 a.m. Eastern. That's 4:59 a.m. Pacific, and CNN is planning live coverage. Meantime, the proposed space station still is alive in the imagination. By a vote of 220 to 196, the House has defeated another bid to kill the space station project. More than $2 billion in station funding remains in next year's federal budget. Critics say some White House arm twisting on behalf of the project made the difference.
West in pretty good shape. It'll stay dry, and the only cool spots in the northwest and the northern Rockies. Take a look now, if you will. I've neglected to mention this. There have been some storms moving down out of Kansas down into Arkansas. You can see that here quite clearly. And in the south, it's a hit-or-miss situation. High humidity, high heat. Afternoon thunderstorms will abound. I can't tell you where. Here I can tell you that this area of rainfall and thunderstorms will continue to drift on to the east, and in a moment we'll show you our forecast weather maps and show you how that does not bode well for the upper Mississippi Valley, where more rain is without a doubt going to move in. This is the weather system coming in from the west. In fact, this is a cold front that dropped in from the north, will start to retreat back as a warm front, and then a cold front will come in from the west with this low pressure center working as a trigger. It's this area that's been under the gun thus far today. Will be again tomorrow and the next day too. Scattered afternoon thunder showers across the south. Tomorrow morning the weather map will look like this as more rain is on tap for the upper Mississippi Valley, and as we move into tomorrow night, not much change. More rain in the Mississippi Valley, and again the scattered afternoon thunderstorm activity in much of the south. Hot summer weather for much of the country will continue. Take a look now at
Right now there are thunderstorms at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and Endeavour could be diverted to California's Edward Airport.
It's the second day in a row the U.S. Space Agency has delayed the landing because of clouds and rain. NASA says it will try again Thursday.
Till Friday, it may be scheduled to land again Thursday if, of course, the weather permits.
Probably happy to be coming home. They've been up there since June 21, logged an extra 1 million miles as bad weather prevented their return on 2 previous days. Well, today the weather in Florida looks good. Few clouds, visibility about 7 miles. Now the Endeavour is bringing home a European space satellite that it captured and repaired in space. That was part of a 6-hour spacewalk. And the Endeavour also is the first shuttle to carry a commercial space laboratory. That was in the shuttle's cargo bay. The 6 astronauts conducted 22 experiments while they were up there. The landing in Florida was selected to keep the shuttle near its launch pad, about 6 miles, near its takeoff place, about 6 miles away from there. They could have landed the aircraft sooner in Florida, in California rather, but it would have taken too long to get the shuttle back to Florida. Its next mission is scheduled for December. We can listen now to some of the landing instructions.
Altitude 4,000 feet. Landing gears down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Endeavour back in Florida after more than 4 million miles, bringing home a European satellite that spent almost a year in space. Drag chute deployed. Nose gear touchdown.
And it's a warm welcome home for the Shuttle Endeavour and its 6 astronauts returning to Florida after a 10-day mission. It now prepares for its next challenge. It will be sent up in December to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. The Shuttle Endeavour returning to Florida.
2 Tagen Verspätung ist die Raumfähre Endeavour auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral gelandet. Während ihrer 10 Tage im All haben die Astronauten unter anderem den Forschungssatelliten EURECA eingefangen und mit zur Erde gebracht. Der nächste Start der Endeavour ist für Dezember geplant. Dann soll das Weltraumteleskop Hubble repariert werden. Etwa 1,5 Stunden nach der Landung in den USA ist in Kasachstan eine russisch-französische Mission mit dem Raumschiff Sojus TM-17 gestartet. Geplant sind gemeinsame Experimente. Außerdem werden die beiden Russen an Bord ihre Kollegen in der Weltraumstation Mir nach 6 Monaten ablösen.
Rückkehr aus dem All. Wegen schlechten Wetters 2 Tage später als geplant ist die amerikanische Raumfähre Endeavour am Mittag auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida gelandet. Auf ihrer 6,5 Millionen Kilometer langen Reise weihten die Astronauten an Bord ein neues Forschungslabor ein und probten einen Weltraumspaziergang. Außerdem bringen sie den im vergangenen August im All ausgesetzten europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA wieder zurück auf die Erde. Startklar nur wenig später, aber viele tausend Kilometer entfernt, das Raumschiff Soyuz TM-12 auf dem Kosmodrom von Baikonur in Kasachstan. An Bord der Fähre die Russen Spiliev und Serebrov sowie der Franzose Enier. Ziel der 4. russisch-französischen Mission ist die Weltraumstation Mir. Bis zum 22. Juli wird die Reise dauern. Für die beiden Russen an Bord etwas länger. An ihrer Stelle wird die derzeitige Besatzung der Mir zur Erde zurückkehren.
Russische Kosmonauten, die noch bis Jahresende im All arbeiten. Wissenschaftliche und technologische Experimente bestimmen den gemeinsamen Aufenthalt in der Schwerelosigkeit. Die franco-russische Gruppe hat in 3 Wochen wieder festen Boden unter den Füßen.
Um 14:52 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit ist die Raumfähre Endeavour auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral im US-Bundesstaat Florida gelandet. Bei Sonnenschein und schwachem Wind setzte das Raumschiff sicher auf der Landepiste auf. Wolken und anhaltende Regenschauer hatten die Landung insgesamt um 2 Tage verzögert. An Bord der Raumfähre brachten die 6 Astronauten den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA auf die Erde zurück.
Nach 10 Tagen im Weltraum ist die amerikanische Raumfähre Endeavour sicher in Cape Canaveral gelandet. Die Astronauten hatten während ihrer Mission unter anderem den europäischen Forschungssatelliten EURECA eingefangen.
Am Morgen waren die Astronauten mit dem Schlager I'll Be Home for Christmas geweckt worden. Bis Weihnachten mussten die 4 Männer und 2 Frauen aber nicht ausharren. Die Landung verzögerte sich wegen schlechten Wetters um 2 Tage. Nach 156 Runden um die Erde setzte das Shuttle um 14:52 Uhr unserer Zeit auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral auf. Die Hauptsorge des Kommandanten hatte in den vergangenen 2 Tagen dem Durst seiner Mannschaft gegolten. Vor den Landungen müssen die Astronauten mehr trinken, um Schwindelanfällen beim Eintauchen in das Magnetfeld der Erde vorzubeugen. 2 Tage Bereitschaft zum Landen und wir sind vermutlich die am besten getränkte Crew, die sich je im Weltraum aufgehalten hat, meinte der Kommandant.
From the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, this is Space Shuttle Endeavour Launch Control. The countdown for our launch of Endeavour on Space Shuttle mission STS-57 is continuing today. We're currently in a standard 2-hour built-in hold at the T-minus 3-hour mark, with about 1 hour and 16 minutes remaining in the scheduled hold. The window for our second launch attempt of Endeavour opens today at 9:07 a.m. and lasts for 1 hour and 11 minutes, or until 10:18 a.m. Eastern Time. All 6 crew members are in their suit-up room at the Operations and Checkout building, which is just, the suit-up room is just adjacent to their crew quarters on the 3rd floor of the ONC. Commander Ron Graby is configuring his microphones to ensure that everything fits properly and everything works properly. Tests will be made here prior to their entry into the vehicle. Pilot Brian Duffy, who turned 40 yesterday on Father's Day. Jeff Weissoff, he's a first-time flyer today. Janice Voss, she is a first-time flyer. Her designation is Mission Specialist 4. And Mommy is apparently Nancy Sherlock. She has a 6-year-old daughter who I'm sure will be watching anxiously this morning as her mother flies in space for the first time. And to round out the crew, we have our payload commander, G. David Lowe. David is from Cleveland, Ohio, and he has flown twice before on missions STS-32 and STS-43. It's roughly 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time here at the Kennedy Space Center. We have a wide shot of the Shuttle Endeavour at the pad, it being illuminated by the high-powered xenon lights. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours in holding. The 6 members of our prime astronaut crew are just now leaving their crew quarters on the 3rd floor of the Operations and Checkout building. Leading the way is Commander Ron Graby, followed by Mission Specialists Nancy Sherlock and Janice Foss. It's a good shot from our vehicle assembly building rooftop camera. It shows the immense size of the mobile launcher structure as the Astrovan pulls up beneath it or beside it, and again the size of the orbiter itself. We will be making a complete and total preparation for the expected liftoff time at 9:07. And we have our first crew members, our 6 crew members, arriving on the 195-foot level, shaking hands with a member of the closeout crew. And they are led across the orbital access arm, about 195 feet above the pad surface.
Houston, MS2, contact.
Morning, Nancy. Houston has you loud and clear.
MS2 has one clear also. Good morning, Chile.
T-minus 8 minutes and counting, and pilot Brian Duffy is now flipping switches in the cockpit to directly connect the 3 fuel cells to the essential power buses.
Essential buses are connected to the fuel cells. Copy.
Again, we are reportedly going to be stopping at T-minus 5 minutes to take an assessment of where the stray aircraft is in our launch safety zone. And we have a go for the orbiter access arm retract. This access arm is used by the crew to gain entry into and out of the vehicle, and it can be returned to position within seconds if need be.
CTLS on 212.
Go ahead.
A final test of the flight control surfaces is now being conducted. This is a program pattern of movements designed to verify the readiness for launch of the engines and other flight control surfaces.
PLT, OTC, clear caution warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
The orbiter test conductor has requested that pilot Duffy clear the caution and warning memory system. And we are in the process of retracting the gaseous oxygen vent hood.
OTC, PLT, the caution and warning is clear, no unexpected errors. Copy. Flight crew, close and lock your visors, initiate O2 flow.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting, and the flight crew has been instructed to close their sun visors. Liquid hydrogen replenish is now being terminated. T-minus 20. 15. 12, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on the first Spacehab mission and the retrieval of the EURECA spacecraft.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour is rolling on to the proper heading.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Roll maneuvers complete, placing Endeavour and crew on a due east course. 3 good engines. Throttle settings at 100%. Main engines are throttling back now, helping to ease loads on the vehicle as it powers through the dense lower altitudes and continues to accelerate rapidly. Engine throttles are now at 72%. Endeavour's already traveling over 1,000 miles per hour. And we have a clean separation. Endeavour's now flying free of the solids under the power of its own main engines. Second stage guidance is now controlling the vehicle. Altitude 173,000 feet.
CDR pass DFS transfer prep complete.
Copy. 772 through 776 complete. And CDR OTC, you can perform the OHM GN2 press.
Houston Endeavour, roll program.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Good roll, flight.
Thank you.
Houston Endeavour looks like a nominal MECO.
MECO confirmed.
Copy, nominal MECO.
We concur, nominal MECO, almost not required, and we're go for the ET photo DTO.
Okay, prop, you go also?
We're go, flight.
Okay, give him a go.
Endeavour, we confirm nominal MECO, OHMS 1 not required. You are go for the photo DTO.
Nominal MECO, OHMS 1 not required. Go for the photo DTO.
ET-SEP.
Well, Jay, we were wondering what our power levels look like relative to pre-flight predicts.
We're going to take a real good hack at about the third flight day. We're seeing power levels running a little lower than expected, and right now we're in pretty good shape to support 8+2.
Great, that's good news, thanks.
And the latest numbers are showing 8+2 plus 19 hours.
Oh, maybe they update. So try to use camera A, Brown? Yeah. Okay. 2. Monitor 1, camera A. One camera A that should be up there at 90 degrees.
Arms now moving in on the right-hand side of the picture.
Endeavour, Eureka! There's a lot of smiling faces down here. And you can probably hear everybody clapping. Nice work.
Sherlock is working on the procedures, preparing for ungrapple, preparing to release the robot arm, special end effector, from the grapple fixture on the EURECA satellite because it is now latched securely into Endeavour's payload bay.
Endeavour Houston, we're about a minute out of the ZOE. Pick you back up on the other side at 3 hours, 48 minutes.
Go ahead, Endeavour for EURECA. We're listening.
Go ahead for EURECA.
Roger, we took a look at 1.1 Bravo. We cycled TCU AB power to REU and back to grapple fixture. The talkback received barber pole. However, on spec 62, Econ 2 does appear to be locked.
Endeavour Houston for the RMS.
Go ahead, Carl.
Dave, as soon as you're in attitude, you have a go for EURECA berth. That'll be on flight SUP 1-6 in your checklist. Endeavour Houston, you have a go for step 4, page FS 1-7.
Roger, we'll put that in what?
Endeavour Houston, good morning on EVA day.
Morning, Susan. We're ready to do some walking today.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're now in with live television from Endeavour as the shuttle moves towards sunset. This view is from a camera mounted on the mechanical arm at the midway point of the arm, or elbow joint as it's called. On board, the arm's being controlled by Mission Specialist Nancy Sherlock as she moves through a test series with it in advance and for preparation for today's spacewalk activities. Again, spacewalk for Weissoff and Low is scheduled to begin at about 8:02 a.m. Central Time. The two are currently continuing to breathe pure oxygen on the shuttle's lower deck, in their spacesuits, in the airlock. They have another hour and 45 minutes or so of that pre-breathe of pure oxygen left before the spacewalk begins. View now is from inside Endeavour's airlock. Of Weissoff and Low as they continue their pre-breathing of pure oxygen in preparation for the upcoming spacewalk.
Thanks, Nancy. Could you pan port just a little bit?
Understand, pan port.
Yes, please.
How's that?
Very good. Thank you. No further camera work required.
We're ready. Put it in? Yep, we're ready. Okay, we're going to open the door hatch. Brian, roger that. Okay, here we go. It's open and stowed. All right.
Okay, check your temp control. Check your temp control valves max hot.
Okay.
And take your water on, which is aft.
Max hot? Max hot. Towards me. Okay, you got it. Okay, Jeff, I've got you there. I'm going to head on out. Okay. And I'll watch the clearance, and once you pick me up, I'm going to duck back in the airlock and pick up the pad. Okay? I've got the two EURECA cable cutter tethers in case we need them. And my standard allotment of wrist tethers that we've already taken account of in the airlock.
Okay, Jeff, a copy. Thanks.
One of the unique aspects of this particular foot restraint is that it does not attach onto the end of the arm or the end effector. It attaches to a fixture towards the side, leaving the end effector free.
Coming. Okay, let you stop.
stop there. And now I'd like you to bring it off the sill. So bring it port about 6 or 7 inches. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, stop. And now bring it down into the bay.
Okay, it's coming down.
You're clear of the slide wire and you got plenty of clearance to the radiators.
Yeah, I got a great view out the window.
We're now looking down on David Lowe from the elbow camera on board the remote manipulator system arm. The EURECA satellite can be seen just above David Lowe's head. The grapple fixture that was used yesterday to grab onto the satellite and bring it into the payload bay is a circular feature almost directly above David Lowe's head.
Yeah, I think I'm in. Definitely. Can you see my heels?
Houston, is that on now? Okay, David, and basically once I get you there in Y, all I'm going to do is maneuver you down. I've got a final Z here, but of course it'll be your call.
Okay. Okay. Yep. I start giving her a GCA when we get down there. You need to be able to see the clearance down here at my feet, okay? Because I can't really see it. I'll move over to the REU. Is that all right? That'd be good. David, whether you pick me up or I pick you up, we'll be using my other waist tether because you've got that hard fixed one now with the IFM. That's right. I got the better view now, Jeff. Oh no, I watched the moon set behind your head. Now I'm seeing the Earth rise. Better than the wood edge. You're between 0 and 1. Okay, just leave it there then. Okay? Leave it there? Or do you want it on 1? Leave it there right now. Okay?
Endeavour is now moving over the west coast of the southern tip of Africa as it rounds out the descending node of orbit number 64.
There we go.
Endeavour Houston with an EVA update.
Okay, Carl.
Yeah, Brian, what we'd like to do now is send Jeff back to the airlock to get the tools for high torque and let Jeff ingress the arm to perform the high torque.
RPM 19.8, CO2 0.2, water temperature 39, H2O gas pressure 15, water pressure 15.6, and my sweet pea It's 4.2.
Endeavour Houston, that will not be necessary. We have declared victory. Both of the antennas are now latched. And you are cleared to... Yeah, good work. That's real fine. You're cleared to continue with your mass handling, DTO. Brian, that's on page 8-10 of your checklist.
Sorry, flight.
How much longer on this maneuver?
Flight, we should be in attitude at 251.
I'm in the middle of an attitude maneuver right now. When we get there, we'll go free drift.
Okay, David, I'm going to start pitching you down.
Okay.
Janice, when I say go, okay?
Okay.
Go.
You could make yourself sick this moon. I'm hitting something. But all right, horizontal pitch.
You're all right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And that's 0.36 and 0.38 there, and I'll turn it back down to 0.35.
This showing a transfer of fluid from one tank to another. This is the receiving tank in the fluid acquisition and resupply experiment on board Endeavour in the lower deck of the shuttle. The fluid acquisition and resupply experiment studies methods of transferring fluids from one container to another.
0.36 and 0.38 there, and I'll turn it back down to 0.35.
And doing so while creating a minimum of bubbling. This is Mission Control Houston. This is a television from the Spacehab module aboard Endeavour. of the Environmental Control and Life Support Systems Flight Experiment, or EFE as it's called by payload controllers. EFE studies recycling wastewater, technology for recycling wastewater on board a spacecraft. It's Mission Control Houston. This view from television cameras in Endeavour's cargo bay is of the west coast of Australia and 80 Mile Beach, and the reflection of the sun in the Indian Ocean. It's Mission Control Houston. As Endeavour moves into sunset, the crew's just been awakened for their morning. Endeavour moving into its 73rd sunset of the flight over the South Pacific.
Views from Endeavour looking northward up the Persian Gulf.
Endeavour Houston, 2 minutes to an LOS. We'll pick you up at 15:45, and on board in tags you should have messages 72 through 78. Flight plan revision is going to come up to you right after the AOS.
Delta V tote 423.0. Ego 04:12. Egos X positive 408.77. Y positive 000.42. E positive 108.83.
Endeavour traveling 1.5 times the speed of sound, or about 1,100 miles an hour. Altitude 30,000 feet. 16 miles to touchdown. Altitude 23,000 feet. Airspeed 256 knots. Continuing in a right bank. Landing gears down and locked. Main gear touchdown. Endeavour back in Florida after more than 4 million miles, bringing home a European satellite that spent almost a year in space. Drag chute deployed. Nose gear touchdown.
Endeavour Houston, we copy, will stop. And Ron and crew, it's nice to have you home.
It's great to be home.
Booster?
Go.
Surgeon?
Go.
FAO?
Go.
Capcom?
Go.
All right. Let's get maneuvered here and then we'll give them a go.
Endeavour Houston, Ron, you have a go for deorbit burn at this time. We will be with you through the first minute or so of the burn.
Roger. Go for the deorbit burn.
And that's a good readback, Ron. Go for the deorbit burn.
Ignition and 2 good engines.
Thank you.
Good control flight.
Thank you. Okay, Capcom on energy, nominal drag chute deploy.
Endeavour Houston, we show you on energy approaching the hack. You're a go for nominal drag chute deploy. The STA is reporting light winds around the hack with nominal hack techniques.
We copy, Kurt. Thanks.
Show you on glide slope on center line. Surface winds are 310 at 8, peak to 11.
Roger.
No deltas, please.
You can see?
No deltas.
Eagle?
Yeah, we're go for the fuel cell shutdown test prior to the RCS Ohms valve test.
Okay, we got a little ways to go yet. Ecom?
No deltas.
Houston, for wheel stop.
Endeavour Houston, we
Eagle
copy,
flight,
will
full
stop.
landing.
And Ron and crew, it's nice to have you home.
Max flight?
No deltas, flight.
It's great to be home.
CPS?
No deltas.
Okay, Capcom, no pulse landing deltas. We'll be doing the fuel cell shutdown test when we get there just before the Ohms RCS test.
with you. We're en route to see you.
We have a tally.